What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto died on the bridge? But Zabuza saved him. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. The mist was thick and the smell of blood permeated through the air. There were two separate battles taking place. One between two elite ninjas, Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist, secure in his element, and Hitaki Kakashi, the copy ninja who was bleeding profusely and at a disadvantage. Away from those two, a dome of mirrors made of ice kept two young ninja trapped and at the mercy of Zabuza's apprentice, the androgynous ice user Haku. His opponents were Uchiha Sasuke, one of the remaining members of the Uchiha clan, and Uzumaki Naruto, the Hidden Leaf Village's #1 maverick ninja. He had been slowly killing his opponents by inches, using his acupuncture needles, or senbon, to inflict shallow wounds that would slowly bleed out. In time his opponents would pass out from blood loss, sparing him the need to go for the kill. Alas, it seemed he would have to bloody his hands, as Sasuke had awakened the bloodline limit of the Uchiha, the mirror wheel eye, also called the Sharingan. It allowed Sasuke to better evade Haku's senbon and would force the fight to drag on, which would drain Haku's chakra that was necessary to maintain the mirrors. Thus removing Sasuke from the fight was now a priority, and Haku knew just how to do that. He's quite amazing, a prodigy still in the fledgling stages. To find that ability within himself and force it to awaken untutored in the heat of battle. Haku thought to himself in regards to Sasuke's skill. I see, you two share the legacy of a bloodline. Haku said, calling out to Sasuke. I can't let this fight go on. My own art forces me to expend a great deal of chakra, so there is a limit to how long I can go on using it. I'm certain the longer our duel drags on, the greater your ability to perceive my movements will become. Especially since to a certain extent, you can already see me now. Haku continued, noting he was now at a disadvantage. It would be foolhardy to target you directly, but if I use the other boy as bait. He now had a plan to incapacitate Sasuke. Haku brought his senbon to a ready, holding them between each of his fingers. Time to bring this to an end, he shouted as he leapt out of a mirror to attack Naruto, who was still down. What, he's going after Naruto? I have to get there first. Sasuke then leapt up to save his teammate. Elsewhere on the bridge, Zabuza and Kakashi continued their fight. Zabuza would move in and strike, and Kakashi would be forced to defend as the mist would cloud his vision. Then Zabuza would return to his cover. He's gone again, yelled Haruno Sakura, the kunoichi of Team 7. She had been staying by Tazuna's side as his guard since she could do little else. Sakura, don't move an inch. I'll finish this as quickly as I can, called out Kakashi to his student. But, oh, okay? Sakura replied. There was nothing else she could do in these circumstances. Did you hear that, Zabuza? Do you truly believe, after all of the hardships I've survived in this world armed only with the Sharingan? Kakashi called out to Zabuza through the mist while unlocking a pouch on his vest. I too was once a member of a ninja assassin corps. I'll show you what kind of shinobi I once was. This isn't something I learned with the Sharingan. Let me show you my own true art, continued Kakashi as he pulled out a scroll. Back with Haku, Naruto and Sasuke, two were on the ground and one was barely standing. Sheesh, no matter how many times I warn you, Naruto, you still keep getting in my way, said Sasuke in a state of shock. The line slipped out as if his mouth acted on its own accord. He had intended to save Naruto once again, as he thought his teammate was still passed out and vulnerable from Haku's last assault. He had made the mistake of underestimating the most unpredictable ninja, and would not be the last to do so. Standing, albeit barely, in front of Sasuke was Naruto, senbon sticking out from numerous points on his body and bleeding liberally. Sasuke could only continue to stare in shock as Naruto coughed up a large amount of blood onto the bridge before he could speak. Naruto looked over his shoulder and spoke to Sasuke, though it appeared it hurt to do so. Get that surprised look off your face, you bastard. He wasn't used to seeing him with a look other than cold indifference or smug superiority. Why, was all Sasuke could say. He couldn't understand why Naruto would risk himself like this, even though he was just about to do the same for him. Why, you ask me why? Thought Naruto as he remembered his interactions with Sasuke upon joining Team 7. These could be his final moments, so his last words should have a great meaning to them. At first I hated you, began Naruto. You had everything I ever wanted. You had a family, even though you lost them at least you have memories of them. I've always been alone so I don't know the pain of your loss but neither do I know the joy of having a family. I do know what it's like to be alone. I thought maybe we could have been friends but you didn't want any. You had every girl you ever met throwing themselves at you while they act like I don't exist. I then decided if you didn't want a friend I'd be your rival. I trained my hardest to be as good as you but no matter how hard I tried I was always last and you were the best without even trying. You know what? He asked. Despite all that you are still the closest thing to a friend I have. Naruto took a moment to think about that. Sure there was the old man, but he was too busy running the village. Iruka-sensei only started opening up to me since the incident the day of the graduation exam and I've only just met Konohamaru. In my early days at the academy I had some fun with Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji but that didn't last. Feeling the last of his strength leaving him Naruto struggled to get out his final words. I swore I wouldn't die until I became Hokage. Then again, what kind of Hokage would I be if I can't protect my friends? One last piece of advice. Somebody recently told me that a person can become strong when they are protecting someone precious to them. Even though I'm dying I feel stronger than ever right now since I did it to save you. Find your precious person Sasuke and become a strong Hokage since I couldn't. With that final message Uzumaki Naruto collapsed in Sasuke's arms, and was no more. As Sasuke held Naruto all he could think about was Naruto calling him his only friend. Now his closest friend lay dead in his arms. He died to save me. He didn't do it because I'm the last loyal Uchiha or because it was his duty. He did it because I was his friend. He's my friend and he's now dead because of me. If I had been faster I could have saved him. Were the thoughts running through Sasuke's mind. He would have time to reflect on the rest of Naruto's final words later as the Sharingan gave him a perfect memory of them. For now all he could feel was the pain of another loss and a burning in his eyes. While Naruto's final moments played out Haku was getting back on his feet. One of his opponents was dead, as he intended and the other was vulnerable. It wouldn't take much to set him off in a fit of anger and finish what he started. He struck one blow at me, and without any sign of shirking, he sacrificed himself for you. He was a shinobi of the utmost respect, who in order to protect someone he cared about, threw himself headlong into what he knew was a trap. Haku began to taunt Sasuke into making a final, foolish attack. Is this the first time a comrade of yours has died? Such is a ninja's path. Finished Haku, now back on his feet and ready to end the fight. He let the mirrors melt so he could conserve his chakra or use the water for other techniques. Shut up, yelled Sasuke at Haku. I'm going to kill you. He screamed at Haku while glaring at him, his eyes now having changed from a newly developed Sharingan to a pair of spinning, six-pointed stars. Whether Sasuke was aware of the change is unknown. Haku just looked on at Sasuke, confident he would now be unfocused. Something wasn't right though. His eyes are different from before. They don't look like a normal Sharingan. I should be careful. I'll play it safe just in case. Sasuke, almost out of chakra, suffering from numerous cuts, some of which were still bleeding and even with several senbon stuck in him refused to give up. He pulled out his remaining shuriken and threw them at Haku while readying a pair of kunai and charging forward. Haku evaded the shuriken with ease and brought up his senbon to parry Sasuke's kunai. Like the start of their fight the two were now locked together, Haku's senbon holding back Sasuke's kunai. When one struck the other would block. Sasuke hit hard and fast, not giving Haku time to use any one-handed seals. Sasuke's Sharingan also gave him an advantage as he could predict Haku's moves, but his own rage at Naruto's death was making his moves sloppy. Finally Haku started to wear out and made an opening. Sasuke took full advantage and slashed at his throat, causing a large amount of water to pour out. Wait, water? Was all Sasuke could think as Haku dissolved into a puddle of water. Then there was nothing but blackness. Haku looked down at his fallen foe. After he noticed the strange new form of Sasuke's Sharingan he replaced himself with a water clone and waited for the ideal time to strike. When Sasuke became distracted by his clone's demise he struck him from behind, knocking him out. It was a crude method but effective. Haku took one last look at Naruto's body. You really took my words to heart. It appears we shared the same ideals. If we had met under other circumstances we could have been friends. Who knows what could have become of you if someone like Master Zabuza had found you at a young age like he found me. Spoke Haku to Naruto's lifeless body. He didn't like killing, especially someone so much like him, but it was part of the shinobi lifestyle. Now I should see if Master Zabuza needs assistance. Zabuza in fact did need assistance, and a lot of it fast. Kakashi had felt the battle has lasted too long and prepared a trap. Using the blood he had shed to cover Zabuza and his sword, he summoned his ninja dogs, using the scent of the blood to determine Zabuza's location, to hold him down so he could prepare for the kill. Charging up his signature attack, the lightning blade, Kakashi charged forward at Zabuza, ready to end his life, only to slip as Senbon pierced his legs from behind. Kakashi fell to the ground, his attack cancelled lest he accidentally hurt himself with it in his fall. "It's about time you got here," Zabuza called out to his apprentice. "I was worried you were going soft and were taking it easy on those brats." Kakashi, struggling to get up, looked back at where the attack had come from. While he had his Sharingan active, he was charging straight forward and was not expecting to be attacked from behind. With his vision locked on Zabuza, he was prepared for anything he might do but was not ready for this. It would mean only one thing. His students had lost. That was his last thought as Haku threw a pair of senbon that pierced his neck, putting him in a near-death state. With their summoner gone, Kakashi's nin dogs disappeared, freeing Zabuza. He stretched out, a bit sore from where the dogs bit him or held him down, but otherwise fine. The Uchiha awakened his Sharingan, and it then changed into another form. That gave him an advantage, so I had to proceed carefully. Haku replied to his master. He would inform him of the rest of the fight later to learn how to improve. A tool has to be well maintained after all if it is to be of any use. That's odd, but we'll worry about it later. Right now we have a job to finish, said Zabuza. He then dispelled the mist, deciding it was a waste of chakra. It turned out to be a very good idea as it revealed more than just the two groups of ninja battling on the bridge. On the incomplete end of the bridge stood Gato and a large group of mercenaries. "Gato, what are you doing here?" Zabuza asked of his employer. "Why did you bring all of them?" he further inquired, referring to the large number of mercenaries accompanying him. Gato just stood in front of the mercenaries, leaning on a cane and looking smugly at Zabuza and Haku. Behind the two mist ninjas, Tazuna and Sakura were looking on in shock. Kakashi, Sasuke and Naruto were all unconscious, and Gato was now here with a small army of mercenaries. Things were looking bad for them. "There's been a slight change of plans, Zabuza, or at least your plans anyway." Gato said to Zabuza, "This is what I had in mind all along. You're going to die, demon, here and now." "What?" was all Zabuza could say. Is Gato an idiot? He didn't even wait until I killed the bridge builder. I guess he'd rather do it himself to set an example and just used me to deal with the ninjas Tazuna hired. He must have thought that bunch of mercenaries would be enough to finish me off. "You must have guessed. I never intended to pay you," continued Gato, oblivious to his fate. "It's such a bother hiring a skilled ninja affiliated with one of the top ninja villages. It's expensive, and they tend to have friends who object when I betray and kill them. It's so much simpler to hire nuke nin, renegades like yourself. No one cares what I do to you once the job is done. All of you ninja are so eager to fight each other. Once you've each other down, common thugs can finish off the rest. It's a great business plan, efficient and inexpensive. My only mistake was hiring you in the first place. Calling yourself the demon of the hidden mist is just plain false advertising. You're no demon, more like a baby demon, if that." He finished, confident in his victory, not knowing he had moments to live. Zabuza just turned to Haku, who had finished pilfering Kakashi's unconscious body for some basic supplies. He passed a soldier pill to Zabuza, having already had one. "Haku, did Kakashi have any explosive tags on him?" Zabuza asked his apprentice after swallowing the pill. "Yes, several actually," Haku replied while handing some to Zabuza, who took one and wrapped it around the handle of a kunai. He then threw it right at Gato, where it embedded itself into his neck, killing him instantly. Before his body could even fall to the ground, the explosive tag detonated, blowing up Gato's corpse and knocking the mercenaries next to him on the ground. "Well, Tazuna, considering my employer is now dead and I have no way of getting paid, I won't be killing you today." Zabuza called out to the bridge builder, who was with Sakura as she cried over Sasuke and Naruto's bodies, not realizing the former was only unconscious. Tazuna merely nodded back. After seeing Gato appear with his mercenaries he panicked, but remembering the type of person Gato was, Tazuna guessed his next move and took a chance that Zabuza would no longer target him. The mercenaries did not take the death of their employer well. With Gato dead they no longer had a source of income. Neither did Zabuza or Haku, but they were already planning on raiding Gato's coffers. "You ninja killed our meal ticket," one of the mercenaries yelled out. "Now you're going to die. The only way we can break even now is to loot the city and every business and home." "Oh yeah," called out several more. "It looks like they are going to be trouble," said Zabuza. At this point he wasn't interested in wasting his time on flunkies. "Haku, would you mind dealing with them?" he asked his apprentice, even though Haku would have taken it as an order and done so anyway. "Yes sir," Haku replied, performing the seals for a technique. 1,000 flying water needles of death. He called out, using the water on the bridge for his attack. The needles tore into the mercenaries, incapacitating them with ease. Zabuza calmly observed the attack. None of the mercenaries were dead, but they were out of commission. With that dealt with he turned back to Tazuna, noticing the villagers on the other end of the bridge. "Haku, it's time to go. The people of Wave will deal with the mercenaries, and we should clear out Gato's funds before someone beats us to it," Zabuza said to Haku. The two then disappeared to collect their payment, however they could. It was the night of the battle on the bridge. Sasuke had awoken and after a tearful reunion with Sakura had gone to check on Naruto's body. He needed to know for certain of Naruto's fate. He didn't want it to be true, but in his mind there was no doubt that his teammate was dead. Naruto had numerous cuts from Haku's senbon, several of which were still embedded in him. He had lost a tremendous amount of blood, had no pulse and wasn't breathing. There was one last thing that convinced Sasuke that Naruto was truly dead. He now had the kaleidoscope mirror wheel eye, or Mangekyo Sharingan. The only way he could have obtained it was to kill his best friend. Seeing Naruto die in front of him and blame himself for it must have been close enough to achieve it. Kakashi at least had a faint pulse and had been treated by one of the local doctors as best as they could. They estimated he awakened in the morning, and recover completely in a week. He was resting in Tazuna's house once more. As for Sasuke and Sakura, they had a duty as ninjas of the Hidden Leaf to perform. To keep others from learning of their secrets they had to destroy Naruto's body. At first neither wanted to go through with it, but they knew what might happen if they didn't. They did not want anyone to desecrate Naruto's remains just to gain an edge over the Hidden Leaf. To that end they had dug a grave and erected a special rig that would allow them to cremate Naruto, or at least burn him beyond recognition and render his corpse useless to those who would try to plunder its secrets. Then his remains would be lowered into the grave, which would be filled. They had a simple cross to mark the gravesite, the only thing that would indicate its existence. Naruto himself was lying on the hastily built rig. The grave was lined with a blanket to cover what was left of his body once the pyre had burned out. They didn't have the time or money for a coffin, so that would have to do. They took away his forehead protector to return to Iruka and his equipment since he no longer needed them. With their final preparations complete, Sasuke and Sakura said a prayer for Naruto and set the pyre ablaze. Sakura left after that. Not being able to maintain herself, she ran back to Tazuna's house to cry herself to sleep. Sasuke remained to finish his task, eyes once again burning as he felt the Mangekyo activating. He struggled to keep it from doing so, as then he would never forget the scene, not that he would ever be able to do so. It had been a week since the battle on the bridge. Kakashi had indeed awoken the next morning, but was unable to move. The first thing he did was inquire as to the aftermath of the battle. Tazuna informed him of Gato's betrayal and death to Kakashi's relief. Even if they defeated Zabuza, as long as Gato was alive he would not allow the bridge to stand. If it was completed he would just find a way to have it destroyed. With his death wave may just be free. Kakashi was concerned that Zabuza and Haku had disappeared. Presumably they would be clearing out Gato's funds to cover their expenses. That would also mean anyone trying to assume command of Gato's company would have little resources to do so. He was also relieved to learn Sasuke had survived, but was very concerned over Naruto's apparent death. He had a regeneration bloodline that accelerated his healing. The wounds he suffered and blood lost should have been healed and replenished in a few days. Kakashi didn't know for sure whether Naruto inherited it from Minato or Kushina, as they both seemed to heal faster than normal. Had he simply been attended and left to rest, his vitals should have returned to normal overnight and he would have woken up after a nice long rest. Kakashi, as much as it hurt, hoped Naruto really was dead, because if he wasn't it would mean his teammates burned and buried him alive. At the current moment Kakashi was in front of Naruto's grave, the freshly dug dirt and cross the only signs of its existence. He was praying for forgiveness while adding another name to the list of people he visited at the memorial stone. Once he was finished he returned to Tazuna's home. He would never reveal his suspicions of Naruto's survival. The stigma of knowing he might have lived and was killed by his teammates would traumatize them. A week later Kakashi, Sasuke and Sakura were standing on the completed end of the bridge that connected Wave to Fire Country. Tazuna, Inari and Tsunami were also there to say goodbye. "Thanks to you our bridge has finally been completed, but at a great price," Tazuna said to the Leaf Ninja. The memory of Naruto's death was still fresh in their minds. "Thank you for your hospitality, and your condolences," replied Kakashi as he and his remaining students began their journey home. "We still need to dedicate the bridge." Tazuna spoke to his daughter. "There's only one name that would fit. What are you going to call it?" asked Tsunami. "The Great Naruto Bridge," replied Tazuna. Naruto touched Inari's heart, and Inari touched the heart of all the people in our city. Naruto built the bridge that eventually carried us all to hope and courage. "It's a nice name, Dad. I'm sure Naruto would have loved that. Naming it in his honor is the least we could do after what he did for us. This bridge will stand as a memorial for Naruto and become famous the world over as a symbol of perseverance in the face of adversity. Everyone will hear about it and the boy it was named after, and no one will ever forget him." 2 weeks later, a wagon stopped at the border of Fire Country and Hot Spring Country, where a check stop was posted. The driver pulled up to the stop to address the man running the station. "I'm a merchant here on business," the man stated. He was wearing a straw hat that covered his hair and eyes. His lower face was concealed by a scarf. The rest of his attire was standard merchant wear for the area. "My nieces are with me, they are my assistants," he further explained. Behind him in the wagon were 2 girls keeping an eye on their goods. One had long black hair, brown eyes, creamy, pale skin, and wore a pink kimono. The other was wearing a green kimono jacket with a red shirt, skirt and belt. She was more tanned than her apparent sister or possible cousin. Her most unique feature was her blue eyes, whose pupils, in the right light, or lack of it, appeared to look like slits. Pain was all Uzumaki Naruto could feel at the moment. He had several senbon sticking out of his body and numerous cuts that were leaking blood. The next thing he knew, he was knocked to the ground by his teammate to avoid another assault from his opponent, and he now felt the pain of hitting the concrete ground of the bridge. As he struggled to get up, he saw his opponent charging toward him and his teammate rushing to stop him. Naruto, ignoring the pain running through his body, summoned the last of his strength and threw himself in the line of fire and took the barrage of senbon head on, never wondering about who the attack was really meant for. With the last of his strength gone, having been used up in that last desperate move, the pain Naruto had overcome was back with a vengeance. His body was now riddled with senbon sticking out from every limb, his neck and torso. Struggling to breathe, he coughed out a generous amount of blood. Knowing these would be his last moments, he spoke his final words to his teammate and began to let the sweet grip of death take away his pain. He wouldn't feel the pain of his wounds, the pain of knowing he would never accomplish his dream of being Hokage, see his precious people again, or that he had failed to protect them. After all the pain, he would finally be at peace. Or so he thought. The pain of his old life was now almost gone. Soon he will know a new kind of pain. It was the night after the battle on the bridge. Naruto lay on a funeral pyre suspended over a freshly dug grave lined with cloth. To his teammates he was dead to the world, but for a moment Uzumaki Naruto was slightly conscious. What happened? Where am I? Did I die? For a brief time Naruto could form some coherent thoughts. I feel really sore. I can't move at all. If this is the afterlife, it sucks. Then again, I really don't know what I was expecting. Religion kind of conflicts with the ninja lifestyle. Obviously Naruto has never heard of Jashinism. At least it doesn't hurt anymore. I can rest now. That's when Sasuke and Sakura finished their prayers for Naruto to rest in peace and set the pyre ablaze. Then the pain struck again. Naruto could no longer make a focused thought as the fire burned at his flesh. His skin and hair burned off, his orange jumpsuit turned to ash. All he could feel was a burning sensation spreading through his body. Suddenly there was a feeling of warmth. Unlike the fire, it started from his belly and spread throughout the rest of him. Also, unlike the fire, it felt good and took away the pain he felt. Then, once again he felt no more. The sound of dripping water reverberated off the walls. Uzumaki Naruto lay in a shallow pool of water in what appeared to be a corridor lined with pipes. Some were rusty and leaking, others looked new and shiny. They appeared to have red water that flowed through them, all of it coming from one direction. There were also several doors, though where they lead was a mystery. Naruto, having awoken, pushed himself up and took stock of his surroundings. Now where am I? I've gone from being dead sore and unable to move to feeling like I was on fire. And now I'm soaking wet and it looks like I'm in a strange sewer. Maybe I was on fire and somebody sent me here to put it out? Nah, that can't be right. Still, I have no idea where I am, so I should be careful. With that he began to look around while staying in his current spot. It looks like that strange red water is coming from deeper in here. Should I head for its source or to wherever it's flowing towards? Naruto pondered to himself. Deciding to investigate the source of the strange water, he headed forward. After some time he arrived at the source of the red water. Looming in front of him was an enormous set of steel bars, giving the appearance of a prison cell. A paper tag with "seal" written on it was in the center of it. Naruto instantly knew there could only be one thing that would need a cell this large. The nine-tailed fox demon. As if reading his thoughts, a pair of giant, glowing red eyes appeared, followed by many sharp, grinning teeth. Naruto had come face to face with the source of all the suffering in his life, and ironically the only thing keeping him alive. So, my host finally came to visit me. The great demon bellowed out. You're the Nine Tails, stammered Naruto. He just had a near-death experience and was now standing before one of the strongest demons to ever walk the earth. Suddenly the fox sent one of its arms through the gate, but the bars kept it from reaching Naruto. The fox growled and called out to Naruto. I'd like to devour you, but the seal keeps me in place. Why don't you be a nice boy and tear it off? You don't have much longer to live anyway, so let me put you out of your misery. Naruto was panicking at first, but seeing the seal keep the fox from getting to him helped him calm down. One thing about the fox's statement concerned him though. What do you mean I don't have much longer to live? Yelled Naruto to the fox. Now that he knew the fox couldn't hurt him, he found it easier to stand up to it. Isn't it obvious? The fox asked. You were beaten in battle, and in your vulnerable state your so-called team took the opportunity to get rid of you once and for all. I'm sure you felt it, that burning sensation before you ended up here. They were burning you alive, making you suffer as much as they could before they left you to die. Naruto was in shock. They wouldn't do that, would they? He questioned himself. He looked back on his memories of being in Team 7, and of his teammates, looking for something to convince himself they wouldn't do something like this. Oh, they would, the fox said as if reading Naruto's thoughts, which it might be able to. You know, the boy in the mask can put people in a near-death state, and so should your teammates. After a good night of rest you would be fine, especially with how fast you heal. They just wanted you out of the way. The fox took a moment to let that thought sink in. Naruto appeared to be considering what the fox was saying. Yes, that's it. I will fill you with so much despair you will beg me to kill you and end it. If I can't harm you through the seal physically, I'll crush you emotionally. Then I shall gain my freedom. The fox continued his malicious manipulations. I bet that pink-haired girl is glad you're out of the way. Always making a fool of yourself, trying to get her to go on a date with you in a pathetic attempt at gaining attention. Would you even know what to do if you were on one? I bet you'd just eat ramen in that disgusting manner and talk about how you're going to be Hokage someday, so everyone will have to be nice to you. I'm sure she'll be much happier without you constantly irritating her. The fox was now targeting Naruto's dreams. Being reminded that he will never become Hokage or get Sakura to like him was dragging Naruto deeper into a pit of despair. I can easily see through your act. You don't really like that girl. It's all just another way of gaining the attention you so desperately crave. Or is it because if you get her to like you instead of that, Uchiha? At this point the fox growled out Uchiha. The name obviously poisoned to him. It'll be a way to prove you're better than him since you'll never be a stronger ninja. Naruto actually considered the fox's words. He's right, Sakura will never go out with me if all I am is just an annoyance to her. I really don't know what I would do on a date anyway. Maybe I did only like her because she liked Sasuke and I wanted to prove I was better than him. Naruto was barely standing before, but now he was on his hands and knees, his earlier courage in facing the fox waning. The fox knew he was close to breaking him. He began to tear into Naruto's faults, and with them his will to live. As for your dream of being Hokage, didn't you say you wanted to be Hokage so everyone would respect you? Bah, who would respect a brat like you? All you do is play pranks on the people you want to like you and run around in that orange eyesore yelling how you're going to be Hokage. You don't want their respect, the way you act is proof of that. You'll never be respected if you don't show any yourself. You just want them to stop ignoring you. All Naruto could focus on now was the fox's words. Is the fox right? Do I really want their respect for a selfish reason like that? The fox continued to torment his host, deriving a sinister form of pleasure from doing so. So tell me, what have you done to work towards that goal? Did you study hard and be a good student at the academy? No, you weren't any good at schoolwork, so instead of trying harder you just called it boring, said a great Hokage doesn't need to know any of it and spent your time playing pranks. It seems to me you didn't want to admit you were bad at something and quit. What happened to that never give up attitude? Naruto was almost at the end now. What if the fox is right? If I had been a better student I wouldn't be the dead last and I wouldn't be on Team 7. I might have even passed the graduation exam the first time. Instead I spent my time playing pranks on the people who I want to respect me. The fox is right, he's... Suddenly Naruto's eyes shot open wide in revelation. Naruto, who was a second away from giving into the demon's urges and on his hands and knees, shaking in despair, slowly began to rise. What was I thinking? Naruto asked of himself. I was actually listening to the nine-tailed fox demon. It's because of him that I went through my suffering. If it wasn't for him I'd be treated like any other kid. Naruto, his resolve restored, stood upright and faced his literal inner demon. I'm not listening to you anymore. He shouted to the fox. If it wasn't for you I wouldn't have those problems. So if I'm going to die I'll do it with a smile on my face knowing I'm taking you with me. You insignificant little whelp, the fox roared. Do you really think that if you die I will too? Let's test that theory, shall we? At that point the fox began pushing more of its chakra through the seal, not just through the pipes but into Naruto himself. What are you doing? Naruto yelled questioningly. He could feel the fox's chakra flowing through him, coursing through his body and filling him with power. I'm giving you some of my power. If you can handle it you'll live and recover much faster. If not, it'll consume you from the inside out. Either way is fine with me. The fox answered. Let's see what you are made of. All Naruto could focus on was the fox's chakra flowing in and around him. He had to get it under control before it destroyed him. His will to live back in full. Naruto concentrated on pushing back the fox's chakra. This feels easy somehow, like it's natural for me to do this. Naruto thought of how simple it was to reign in the fox's chakra. I feel better too, like its power is restoring my strength and increasing it too. Naruto focused everything he had on one last push and fought the fox's remaining chakra back at its source. Then his vision went black and he collapsed, disappearing from his mindscape and the fox's influence. It was the morning after Naruto's burial. All that was left to show of it was a cross over a patch of freshly dug dirt. Standing before it were two people. One was tall with dark hair and had a massive sword at his back. The other was shorter with long, black hair that matched his kimono, the closest thing to funeral attire he had. Momochi Zabuza stood by his apprentice, or tool if you asked him. This had been the kind-hearted Haku's first kill, and it was someone he had gotten to know. Although Haku had been trained to kill should he have to and learned to control his emotions, Zabuza could tell he was not taking it well. He hoped by bringing him to Naruto's grave it would give him some closure so he could move on. With the funds acquired from Gato they would soon be ready to join the Mist Rebellion forces and stage another death blow against Yagura. There was a possibility Haku would be forced to kill again, even though it didn't seem to fit him at all. Zabuza stood silently, but inside he had several thoughts about the boy he was paying his respects to. I don't know much about you, kid, but Haku seems to think you were one of the good ones, someone like us. You said your dream was to be Hokage, right? Well, mine is to be Mizukage, so I can respect ambition like that. Zabuza then took a moment to remember the short battle he had with Naruto. I've never seen anyone make as many shadow clones as you could, so had the power. That trick you pulled with the windmill shuriken was clever too. I still don't know how you turned into one. You had a lot of potential. Too bad Kakashi was wasting it. You would have done well in Mist. I could have done a lot with someone like you. With that thought, Zabuza turned away and waited for Haku to finish his prayers. Haku was remembering when he first met Naruto. He had gotten up and put on a pink dress he liked. Should anyone meet him, they would think he was a girl and underestimate him. It had nothing to do with how good he looked in it, nothing at all. He then left to collect herbs to make a medicinal bomb. In a clearing he saw a boy, sleeping soundly. Haku took a closer look and saw a forehead protector with a leaf engraved on it. Haku then realized this boy was one of the ninjas hired to guard the bridge builder. He reached down and placed one of his hands at the boy's neck. You'll catch your death of cold, sleeping on the ground. That was the first thing I said to you, thought Haku, reminiscing on the events of 3 days prior. You helped me collect the herbs I was looking for. When I asked what you were doing here, you said we're training so all the people in your village would respect you, and to prove yourself to a certain someone. Haku then took a moment to remember how he met his certain someone before he continued. I asked you if there was anyone special in your life. You seemed confused by the question. I told you that when people protect something truly precious to them, they truly can become as strong as they must be. You understood that perfectly. I knew you would become strong. Haku was glad he met someone who knew where true strength came from. It was ironic Haku, who had the ice release bloodline limit and was born in water country, could possess a belief so close to the Leaf's will of fire. Haku's next memory of Naruto was a bit more humorous. I walked away after that, but I wish I had stayed. I would have liked to have seen the look on your face when I told you I was a boy. Haku's thoughts grew darker after that, as his next, and only other memories of Naruto were the ones before his death. I remember when you appeared on the bridge and joined the battle. You scratched my mask and knocked me out of my mirror with a shuriken. You really earned that title of the most unpredictable ninja. Haku's final memory of Naruto was the most painful. Instead of attacking from the outside and forcing me to divide my attention, you entered my dome of ice mirrors to save your teammate. Despite your best efforts, neither of you could get out. I tried my best to disable the two of you so I wouldn't have to kill you, but the Uchiha began to keep up with my attacks as he awakened his Sharingan. Haku took a moment to breathe and remain calm. He needed to do this. There would be deadly consequences if he lost his composure in the middle of a battle. If he couldn't make his peace with Naruto's memory now, he may never do so. I knew then there was only one thing I could do to end the fight. If it was prolonged, I might lose, and if I lost, I would be of no use to Master Zabuza. I had to take the Uchiha out of the fight, but his skill would make it difficult to do so. I decided to use you as bait. If I went to attack you, the Uchiha would step in to protect you and I would disable him. He was almost there. All Haku had to do was relive this memory one more time and he would be relieved of the burden of his guilt. I didn't expect you to be able to get up, much less throw yourself into the line of fire. I should have known better of the most unpredictable ninja. You really took my words to heart. You found that inner strength and used it to save someone precious to you. This was it. With a few parting words, Haku would be free of Naruto's memory and could move on. I'm sorry about what I did that day, but I did what I had to do. It was unfortunate we met as enemies. Under other circumstances we could have been friends or more. Goodbye, Naruto. With that, Haku also turned away. Looking toward his master, Zabuza's face unreadable under his wraps, Haku began to ask what they were going to do next when they felt an unbelievable pressure upon them. It was like the killing intent Zabuza would inflict upon his enemies, only much darker. Zabuza knew what it was as he had felt it before, in the presence of the man he wanted to kill. This feeling, it's demonic chakra, but where is it coming from? Zabuza said as he looked around, trying to find the source. He was apparently asking the question to himself, but said it loud enough for Haku to hear. Haku was frightened. If his master was right, and he had no doubt he was, then they might be in the presence of a demon. Zabuza was clearly alarmed by this possibility. Most wouldn't be able to tell by looking at him, but Haku had spent enough time with him to be able to tell. There isn't anyone else around, we checked thoroughly before we came here. It's just us and Naruto's grave. Haku was trying to help answer Zabuza's question, even if it wasn't directed at him. Zabuza, after hearing Haku's response, turned back toward him, and at Naruto's grave. There's no way, it can't be, can it? Zabuza thought to himself. No, I'm sure of it. That feeling of demonic chakra, it's coming from the grave. Nothing that's dead would give off this feeling, unless… Zabuza's thoughts trailed off there. He had a few ideas of what was happening in that grave, and hoped his worst fears weren't about to come true. Haku, stand back and get ready with one of those demonic chakra suppression tags we were saving for Yagura. Zabuza ordered to his apprentice. Haku moved away from the grave and searched through a storage scroll he had on him. He found the correct tag and took it out. It was something they had acquired from a black market dealer and were saving it to use on Yagura the next time they fought to prevent him from using the three-tailed turtle's chakra. He passed it to Zabuza, who stepped in front of the grave and used an earth technique to move the dirt aside and push up the casket below, or in this case the blankets wrapped around Naruto and the boy himself. When the shroud was freed from the ground, it was immediately blown away by the demonic chakra pulsing out of Naruto. What they saw was a fiery red chakra, whirling around Naruto like a maelstrom. The intensity from it kept them from getting close. I was right, the demonic chakra was coming from the kid. Either he's still alive and using it to save him, or he's dying and the demon is trying to break free. Zabuza had confirmed the source of the demonic chakra, although he didn't seem too happy about it. Before he could plan his next move, the chakra's storm seemed to calm down as it slowly began to recede into Naruto. Seeing his chance, he slapped the demonic chakra suppression tag onto Naruto's forehead. With it in place, the remaining red chakra finally dissipated completely. Phew, that was close, said Zabuza with a sigh of relief. I was not looking forward to fighting another demon. Not only that, since this kid's from Konoha, that means that the demon sealed in him can only be the nine-tailed fox. What's with this kid? There's something not right here, there has to be more to him. His interest piqued, Zabuza knew what he had to do. He moved over to Naruto and examined his body. Haku stayed back, not comfortable with what just happened. That's odd, Zabuza thought as he surveyed Naruto. I thought his teammates cremated him, but his body's pristine. No hair though. Naruto's body did in fact appear pristine, and even a bit pale compared to before. Also, there wasn't a trace of any blonde hair on him. Not only that, his clothes are gone. There's plenty of ashes here, so something burned. I doubt they just burned his hair and clothes. Zabuza took a moment to ponder what that could mean. There's only thing I can think of that makes sense. They did cremate him, and the fire consumed his hair, clothes, skin, maybe even some of the flesh. For his body to appear as it does now, so pristine and pale, it must mean he had somehow healed at an astonishing rate. It could be a bloodline that did so, and it used the demonic chakra as energy. Zabuza then leaned in to check Naruto's neck for a pulse and was surprised to find one. Not only that, the whisker marks that used to be on his cheeks were gone. Zabuza turned back to Haku and called out to him. It's okay Haku, he's fine. He has a pulse, and he's breathing, just slowly. You can come over now if you want to see him. Haku appeared overjoyed, his emotional control momentarily forgotten. He was nearly broken-hearted over having finally taken a life, and of someone so much like him. Knowing Naruto was okay came as a great relief for him. Haku rushed forward and stood by Zabuza's side, overlooking Naruto. Naruto was breathing slowly, lying on top of a fireproof blanket. Haku carefully wrapped Naruto in it to preserve his modesty, or possibly out of his own embarrassment. What do we do now? Haku asked Zabuza. He was glad Naruto was alive, but wasn't sure what Zabuza intended to do next. We take him with us, was Zabuza's reply. By the happy look on Haku's face, Zabuza could tell that pleased him. There's a lot about this kid that's a mystery, and I intend on finding it out. Not only that, but his potential is going to waste. I hope I can put him to as much use as I did you and Kimimaro. With that, Zabuza carefully picked up Naruto and set him aside. Putting his hands to the ground and using another earth technique, the dirt receded into the hole, and the grave looked as it did before. No one should know Naruto was not in it. Zabuza then lifted Naruto up again, and with Haku left to return to his hideout. If Konoha was willing to throw away a perfectly good tool, then Zabuza would be the one to polish it, make it shine and use it to strike down his enemies. In a forest on the outskirts of the primary settlement of Wave Country was hidden a base among the trees. It was shaped like a cone and supported by one of the many trees. Support cables held it in place, and a winding ramp led into it. This was the temporary hideout of Momochi, Zabuza and Haku for their stay in Wave. With Gato's death, it may even become a safe house for them. They had spent their time after the battle on the bridge cleaning out Gato's coffers for whatever funds they could acquire. Now in the possession of his assets, including several deeds to properties around the elemental nations, a vast amount of funds and information on secret accounts, they had the resources necessary to fund a death blow against Yagura. Their new acquisitions were scattered around the base. Between that and the supplies already here, it was getting crowded. They would have to pack up and move out soon. Among the wealth and equipment, there was one new acquirement that could be considerably more valuable if used right. That was the apparently not dead Uzumaki Naruto. The boy in question was currently asleep on one of the beds, having been attended to by Haku. His nerves were still raw and tender, presumably from having been forcibly regrown at an accelerated rate after his so-called cremation. Thus Zabuza had to be very careful moving him to this location. They were unable to redress him for this reason, as it would only inflict more pain on someone who has been through enough. At the moment, Zabuza was discussing his plans for Naruto with Haku. They had just brought Naruto back, and while Zabuza knew Haku would never question him and accept his every order, he felt that in Naruto's case, letting Haku know of his intentions would help Haku be more at ease. "Haku," began Zabuza, "what do you think of that boy?" he asked his apprentice. Haku took a moment to reflect on his memories of Naruto. Before they caused him pain, but finding Naruto alive filled him with a sense of relief. The only other time he felt so happy was when his master found him. At that point Haku knew Naruto was someone he could grow to love as well, like a brother. He knows what it means to be truly strong. He was willing to give his life to protect someone precious to him. I honestly feel if we had met him sooner, he and I could have been friends, or like brothers. Outwardly Zabuza didn't react to Haku's words. Inwardly he was pleased. I turned you and Kimimaro into my tools, your only purpose to serve me. You are my shield, the one who protects, and Kimimaro was another sword to strike down those who stood in my way. He had found Haku and Kimimaro in Water Country. Both were young boys with bloodline limits that would make them quite strong someday. That was not the reason he took them in. It was the look in their eyes that told him they were just like him. Now, he recently saw that look again in Naruto's eyes when they fought. Although I made you two into strong shinobi, both of you gave up your own goals and desires in favor of my own, quite willingly too. Soon my dreams may come true. I hope that Naruto will be the one to help you two find new ones of your own. I'm going to keep an eye on the Leaf Ninja. Stay here and maintain vigil over Naruto," said Zabuza, who, having given Haku his orders, left the hideout to ascertain the status of Naruto's soon-to-be former team. Sitting perched in a treetop, Zabuza was observing the house belonging to Tazuna. He had been keeping watch for any signs of activity from the Leaf Ninja. So far there was none. It looks like Kakashi is awake, but immobile. The other brats are fine, physically anyway. It seems they didn't take Naruto's supposed death well at all. I can't imagine how they would feel if they found out he was alive. Overjoyed certainly, until they remember they burned and buried him alive. Zabuza remembered the feeling of demonic chakra that enveloped him and Haku when they visited Naruto's grave. It was either a miracle they were there at the time, or maybe even fate itself. If Haku and I hadn't come to pay our final respects, he would have either suffocated or been consumed entirely by the fox demon's chakra. Even worse, the demon might have been unleashed. I'm not even sure how he survived down there for as long as he did. That brings up the main problem. Naruto's alive, but only because Haku and I were there. If his team finds out he's alive, they would want him back, but they would also feel very remorseful for what they did to him. The negativity that was prevalent among them would disappear, and Kakashi would be sure to teach them properly to avoid a repeat of what happened here. It was clear in Zabuza's mind that after the events here in Wave, should Naruto rejoin his team, things would be much better with them. However, he recognized the potential in Naruto and knew that if the boy joined him, Naruto would become great as well. On one hand, the kid owes his life to us. Then again, if it wasn't for us, he might not have nearly died. I could really use someone like him. But the only way he'd follow me willingly is if he felt he was betrayed by his team and had no reason to return to the Hidden Leaf Village. For a moment, Zabuza considered seeking asylum in Konoha with Haku so they could give Naruto the help he needed. Unfortunately, they needed him to help liberate Mist as much as he needed their support to become a great ninja. I'm close to completing my ambition now. With the funds we liberated from Gato, I can get in tough with the Mist Rebellion forces and obtain the resources needed for the final attack against Yagura. I can't put that on hold for the sake of one child. Zabuza knew there was one simple way to turn Naruto into another invaluable tool. He could convince Naruto his team had thought him dead and abandoned him. He disregarded that right away. It would be a lie, although close to the truth. Should Naruto ever discover what really happened, he would likely betray them. No, if Naruto was to join them, it would have to be of his own accord. Zabuza sighed, and once more gazed at Tazuna's home. The bridge builder himself was completing his life's work. One of the remaining members of Team 7 would either go with him or stay and watch their sensei. There was no other activity. I've had enough of this. I need to know more about Naruto, and I'm not going to find anything out like this. I can't approach anyone here, but Haku can. With that, Zabuza returned to the cone-shaped treehouse to prepare for the next day. It was just past nightfall now. Zabuza had just returned. Haku was watching Naruto as he rested. Zabuza, needing Haku to infiltrate the nearby village to gain information on Naruto's background, made his way into the room where they kept Naruto. It was the closest thing to an infirmary in the hideout. Using what medical knowledge he possessed, Haku set up Naruto with an IV drip. It would nourish his body until he woke up. When he would was unknown. As soon as Zabuza entered the room, Haku turned away from Naruto to face his master. "How is he?" Zabuza asked Haku. "He seems fine physically. He had a slight fever, but I've taken care of that. I did notice his hair seems to be regrowing already," replied Haku. Indeed, there was a wet cloth on Naruto's forehead. He was laying on top of the bed, uncovered save for a towel placed on his midsection to preserve his modesty. Wisps of blonde hair could be seen on his head. "I don't know if he's alright mentally though," continued Haku. "He was thrashing about earlier, and his rapid eye movement suggests he's dreaming. I think he's having nightmares. They seem to have stopped for now." That alarmed Zabuza. It could be a sign that the fox demon is torturing Naruto in his vulnerable state, trying to influence him or gain a stronger presence in his mind. Since he needed Haku to infiltrate the village to learn about Naruto, he would have to confirm what he already knew and suspected of the boy. "Haku, I have something to show you, take a look at this." Zabuza addressed his apprentice while pulling away the towel around Naruto. Haku was confused, to say the least. Why would he show me that? He wondered. I thought that's why he took me to that brothel when I started going through puberty. Haku need not wonder much longer as Zabuza only uncovered Naruto's abdomen. Placing his hand on Naruto's stomach, Zabuza channeled some chakra into it. At once a spiral appeared along with a mirrored set of 4 lines. This was the 8 trigram seal that imprisoned the 9-tailed fox demon within Naruto. Haku looked surprised by the seal's appearance, but Zabuza showed no reaction. At this point it had been confirmed that Naruto was a power of human sacrifice, just like Yagura and Utakata, the host of the 6-tailed slug. "Haku, it's time I told you just what Naruto is," Zabuza said to Haku, who seemed relieved that all his master wanted to show him was Naruto's strange seal. "Do you remember the feeling of dread we felt before unearthing Naruto, and the red chakra that swirled around him?" Zabuza asked Haku, who nodded in reply. "That was pure killing intent backed by malevolent chakra. I've only felt something like that once, when I tried to kill Yagura, and he used the power of the 3-tailed turtle to force me to flee." Zabuza didn't like to remember his failure. That's why he had been preparing for a proper assassination of Yagura and coordinating in secret with the rest of the Mist Resistance forces while acting the part of a missing ninja. Haku, however, was in shock. Knowing that terrible feeling that day was the malice of demonic chakra and that Naruto had a seal on him could only mean he had one of the tailed beasts sealed in him. "I can tell by the look on your face you've realized that Naruto is a power of human sacrifice like Yagura," said Zabuza, addressing Haku. "What's more is since he comes from the Hidden Leaf Village, there is only one demon he could be the host of, the 9-tailed fox demon." Now Haku's mind was filled with questions. Naruto, the boy he just met a few days ago but felt an instant connection to had the most powerful tailed beast sealed within him. What was Naruto's life like? Was it similar to his own? How did the people of the Leaf Village treat Naruto? Unfortunately, the only person who knew the answers to all those questions is in a coma. There might be another way to find out though. Get the information from his teammates. Zabuza had been watching Haku closely to gauge his reaction to the revelation of Naruto being a demon host. He could what Haku was thinking, and it was the same thing he was. I can tell you have a lot of questions about Naruto, as do I, since the only ones who might be able to answer them at the moment are his teammates. You'll have to ask them yourself. Haku understood right away. I see. They haven't seen my real face in combat. The Uchiha did once, but only briefly, so he might not even know I'm a boy. As long as I disguise my voice, they shouldn't find out who I am. Zabuza nodded in reply. It's late now. You can begin your investigation in the morning. Why don't you rest for now? I'll watch Naruto. With that, Haku retired for the night to his quarters, planning what he intends to ask the Leaf Ninja about Naruto and what color dress he should wear. The next morning, Haku had awoken early to leave for his current mission. He had settled on a nice black kimono. The pink one, while nice, he had worn recently. Also, the wearing the black one could be seen as a sign of mourning for Naruto. It was part of his plan for getting close to the Leaf Ninja. Since the Uchiha knew he had met Naruto, he could simply pass himself off as a girl who just wanted to know more about the boy who died while trying to save Wave. Haku began his investigation by listening to the chatter among the people of Wave. Unfortunately, none of them knew anything. There were several though who continued to pay respects to Naruto's grave. With that a bust, Haku had only one source left. It was time to pay a visit to the Leaf Ninjas. Inside Tazuna's house, Tsunami was cleaning. Inari was upstairs, listening to Kakashi tell tales of ninja adventure. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. That's odd, I wasn't expecting any visitors. I hope nothing has happened, thought Tsunami. The situation in Wave was now better than it had been in years. It would be terrible if things started going bad again. Tsunami answered the door, and was surprised to see a girl she had never seen before. Can I help you? She asked the young girl. Hello, my name is Chisato, replied Haku, using an alias and a higher tone of voice. A few days ago I met one of the Leaf Ninja who were hired to protect your father. I heard how he died, and I just paid my respects for him recently. I've come here to find his teammates to learn about how he lived. Tsunami was surprised to hear this girl had met Naruto, as he spent all his time training in the woods. She was also a bit suspicious, as she had never met the girl before. In a small village like Wave you knew everyone. How did you meet Naruto? Tsunami asked Haku. I met him in the woods the day before he died. I was gathering medicinal herbs to help my uncle. He's a traveling merchant and we had been hired to smuggle goods into Wave. Our ship was attacked by Gato's men and he was injured. I've been looking after him since. Tsunami seemed to buy Haku's story, as it was mostly true anyway. I'm sorry for what happened to you, and I hope your uncle gets well. It's unfortunate, but that kind of thing happened often. Hopefully it will be better from now on. Thank you for your condolences, replied Haku. Why don't you come inside? I'll introduce you to Naruto's sensei. His teammates are at the bridge with my father. Tsunami said to Haku, showing him the way to Kakashi's room. Thank you, I'd like that, replied Haku, who followed Tsunami. They made their way upstairs where Tsunami knocked on a door. Inari answered, who immediately began blushing after seeing Haku. Kakashi, this is Chisato. She said she met Naruto the day before he died and wanted to learn more about him. Kakashi took a quick look at Haku and deemed him not to be a threat. Whether it was because Kakashi was still recovering and not at full mental capacity, or because he didn't think anyone as pretty as Haku could be dangerous was unknown. Then again, Haku had no intention of harming anyone, so he really wasn't a threat. Sure, I was just telling Inari some stories about Naruto. Why don't you join us? Kakashi asked Haku. Alright, Haku simply replied and sat down next to Inari, who was still trying to hold in his blush. With that, Kakashi began his tale of Naruto's antics as a member of Team 7. The morning spent with Kakashi had been very enlightening. True, Kakashi couldn't reveal too much about Naruto as some details were sure to be secret. For a ninja though, looking underneath the underneath was part of the profession. Kakashi told them about his first meeting with his team. Haku had learned of Naruto's love of ramen and his dream of being Hokage. Kakashi's next tale was of Team 7's bell test. Haku acted amused by Naruto's failure to beat Kakashi, but he was really surprised. It seemed like Naruto had very little practical skills and wasn't very smart. Shouldn't he have been trained better? Aren't demon hosts trained to be living weapons? What kind of education did he have? After that was Team 7's official start as ninja of the Leaf Village. Kakashi described in great detail how his team did chores while he stood nearby reading. Nothing interesting came up until they had returned Tora, the cat of the fire daimyo's wife, to her. They were about to be assigned another D-rank mission when Naruto protested and insisted they get a C rank, which they actually received. Kakashi told them how they received the wave mission and began to escort Tazuna back to his home. Along the way they fought the demon brothers. Kakashi told Haku and Inari how Naruto had froze up since it was his first fight and had been injured, and how Naruto declared his oath of pain to never run away again. Haku found this intriguing. He knew of the demon brothers' failure as they had escaped the bonds they were left in and reported back to Zabuza. After learning of their failure he sent them to Snow Country to meet up with Kimimaro. They were going to meet again in a border town in Fire Country. Haku didn't pay much attention to Kakashi's explanation of their fight against Zabuza since he had been there. It was intriguing to hear about the fight from another point of view. Kakashi then explained how he had his team perform a chakra control exercise. Naruto and Sasuke took a week to get it down. According to Kakashi, Naruto had a vast amount of untapped hidden power. Inari spoke up next and told Haku how Naruto inspired him and made him believe in heroes again. Although he was sad for Naruto's loss, he wasn't going to spend his time crying since Naruto wouldn't have wanted that. He was going to be strong like his father, and follow in his grandfather's footsteps. Since the next part of the story, the battle on the bridge was well known, Haku declined to hear it. Deciding he had heard enough for now, he left Tazuna's home, but not before Tsunami invited him back for dinner to meet Naruto's teammates. Haku accepted the invitation, then proceeded to return to Zabuza to inform his master of his discoveries. Zabuza was once more keeping vigil over Naruto. Earlier Haku had returned to inform him of what he had learned about Naruto. They had analyzed the information thoroughly to uncover what they could of the enigma that was Uzumaki Naruto. What they learned was conflicting. Zabuza was now pondering what he now knew about the boy. Naruto was the lowest ranked student in the Leaf Village's ninja academy, an orphan, loved ramen and the color orange, used to be a prankster, had a crush on his pink-haired teammate and hated the Uchiha. Zabuza wasn't too interested in his personal habits as much as his skills as a ninja, or lack thereof. On the other hand, he has massive chakra reserves, not surprising considering he's a demon host. That alone gives his massive potential as a ninjutsu specialist. Yet it seems that he had no training to take advantage of this. In the Mist Village, you would not be able to even qualify for the graduation exam unless you could walk on water, due to the abundance of it. He should have been taught and performing chakra control exercises from a young age, but it seems he hadn't even heard of them before Kakashi showed him the tree climbing exercise. That just lowered Zabuza's opinion of the Hidden Leaf Village's training standards. Is it possible that no one was aware of his massive reserves and the need for special training? No, that's unlikely, as his status as a demon host, which should have been well known given the fourth Hokage's defeat of the Fox Demon, would yield much larger reserves than normal. That took any positive thoughts Zabuza had about Naruto's soon-to-be former village and defenestrated them. That pisses me off to no end. Naruto is like a sword that was left out in the rain to rust and dull. I shudder to think what would have become of Haku or Kimimaro if I hadn't taken them in. At least Naruto had a home in the Leaf Village. Whether it was a good home or not remained to be seen. If I had found Naruto when he was as young as Haku and Kimimaro, then Naruto could be my equal by now. I know the boy has the determination and great ambition. Why else would he want to become Hokage? Wait, why does he want to become Hokage? That was the question that was most prevalent in Zabuza's mind. Why would a 12-year-old boy desire to rule so much, and where did he get the idea from? I guess I'll find out more when Haku gets back from his dinner with Naruto's team. Hopefully we'll get our answers then. If not, then we'll wait for Naruto to recover and get them from the source. Are you sure you can't come back? You'd always be welcome here. This was the scene outside Tazuna's home. He and his family just finished their dinner, with Team 7 and another guest. As far as anyone knew, it was a young girl who met Naruto and wanted to know more about him. No thanks, I really need to get back to my uncle. He must be getting worried about me. The first question came from Tezuna's daughter, Tsunami. The reply was from a girl who identified herself as Chisato. Alright then, Tsunami answered, but why don't you have Sasuke escort you home? Even with Gato gone, it still might not be safe out. Besides, it's just common courtesy to escort a lady home. Sasuke grunted in response, not liking what he was being volunteered for. At least she's not fangirling over me. She's the first girl I've met who hasn't. I guess she and Naruto hit it off. Too bad he died the day after he met her. Sasuke thought regarding the situation. No thank you, I'll be fine. I'm tougher than I look. I'm sure I'll be okay. Chisato said, a bit nervous. Nonsense, I wouldn't feel right if something did happen to you. Besides, these ninja were hired as bodyguards, so that's what they'll do. Tsunami said insistently. Actually, I hired them to protect me. Tezuna spoke up, but was ignored. It'll be fine. Go ahead and walk her home, Sasuke. Kakashi ordered his student. Sasuke grunted, still not too pleased with the order. Alright, I suppose it'll be okay. Chisato said, acquiescing to the escort. Sakura, realizing that Sasuke would now be alone with a beautiful girl, suddenly spoke up. I'll go too. You never know what might happen. You could need backup. Inwardly, everyone was rolling their eyes, knowing exactly why Sakura wanted to accompany Sasuke and Chisato. Whether she was still in a fangirl stage, or simply wanted to stay close to her remaining teammate was unknown. Okay, we should be on our way now. Thank you again for the lovely dinner, and goodbye. Chisato bowed in thanks, then walked away with her impromptu escorts. Haku currently had mixed emotions regarding his current situation. He had just ate a lovely, home-cooked meal with the bridge builder's family and the rest of Team 7. It was the best meal he had in quite some time. Now he was headed back for Zabuza's secret base. Unfortunately, he now had company. Tsunami had insisted that Sasuke escort her home, and it would look too suspicious to refuse. Not only that, but Sakura insisted on joining them. I should have just told them I was a boy. Then she might not be so jealous. Then again, I've gone to some hard lengths to prove my real gender. Just what exactly Haku has done to prove his masculinity, or rather his true gender, is better left unknown. Suffice it to say, he has quite indeed gone to really hard lengths to do so. At least Master Zabuza will be waiting for me near the hideout, so I won't have to reveal its actual location. They agreed to meet up nearby, in case Haku was followed back. I bet it would be funny to see me walking with two of the Leaf Ninja. That would make them pretty bad trackers. The best tracker on Team 7 is actually Naruto. With his shadow clones, transformation and stealth skills, he would be best suited for it. Too bad no one has picked up on that yet. Now that I think about it, Naruto would make a good tracker. I wonder what else he could do. So much untapped potential, all gone to waste. I hope we can convince him to join us. The Leaf Village doesn't deserve him. Haku was now lost in thoughts concerning Naruto. He almost did not notice when Sakura, who had been trying to keep Sasuke's attention on her, asked him a question. So, how long will you and your uncle be staying in Wave Country? Haku was quick to answer, as he had been the rest of the evening. He gave the Leaf Ninja and Tezuna's family a slightly altered story of his past, so was technically not lying to them. While he was there, he also learned much of Naruto's past, or at least what his teammates knew of him. Just until my uncle's convalescence is over. We shouldn't be here too much longer. Sakura seemed pleased by that. Oh, well, if you want to come by again, just come to Mr. Tezuna's house in the evenings. We guard him during the day while he's working on the bridge. It would be nice to have another girl to hang out with. Haku could tell why Sakura really wanted him to come by. It seems she's accepted I'm no threat to any possible relationship she may have with the Uchiha. That seems to make her genuinely interested in a friendship with me. Given her rivalry with the Uchiha's other admirers alienated her from her female friends, and the loss of her own admirer, she must want to try to make more. Too bad Haku had no sympathy for her. It's her own fault she has no friends. She's the one who chose to pursue a boy who has absolutely no interest in companionship over a strong friendship. Not only that, but she constantly spurned the affections of someone who had been giving her the attention she obviously craves. What is wrong with her? Haku cleared his throat, calmed himself, and replied to Sakura. No thanks, I need to keep watch over my uncle. I've been gone from his side for too long today already. Sakura was disappointed by that. Oh, okay, then. Sakura looked despondent for a moment, then slowly began another one-sided conversation with Sasuke. She must be bipolar to be able to switch moods like that. What did Naruto ever see in her? Haku thought of Sakura. Having decided he definitely did not like her, and never would, Haku turned his thoughts to Naruto's other teammate. From what I've learned, Naruto thought of him as a rival, but the Uchiha saw him as nothing but an annoyance, much like his fangirls. They're both alone, but where Naruto is alone by circumstance, the Uchiha is alone by choice. Even Haku had heard of the Uchiha massacre, and knew of Uchiha Itachi from Zabuza's bingo book. He has, and had everything Naruto, or even I, could have wanted. Yet, instead of accepting the affections he's given, he spurns them in favor of pursuing his vengeance. That will only lead to his death one day. Haku, from experience, knew what Sasuke's fate would be if he continued his path of self-destruction. If Sasuke does kill Itachi, then Itachi's allies will kill him. Then Sasuke's friends, if he still has any, will avenge him. The cycle will just continue endlessly. The only way to end it would be either kill everyone ever connected with Itachi, and spend the rest of his life seeking them out, or forgive Itachi, and move on with his life. What path Sasuke took was no concern to Haku. One thing was sure though. With Sasuke's determination, obsessive as it was, he would either go far, or die trying. Then there's Naruto's former sensei. I've never seen someone so apathetic before in my life. He's supposed to be the son of the White Fang and the only surviving student of the Yellow Flash, yet Master Zabuza and I could have killed him easily. The only reason we did not do so was to avoid incurring the Leaf Village's wrath. It would not be good for them to have another village out for their blood, though it was unlikely Kakashi would forget his defeat anytime soon. Actually, thanks to the Sharingan, it was impossible. I suppose he can be forgiven for expecting better of his students since he was a jonin at their age, and it is his first time being a sensei. Still, given Naruto's condition and his potential, I can't forgive him or anyone from the Leaf Village for letting it go to waste. The idea that Naruto was the one wasting his talents never occurred to Haku, who began to gather his thoughts of Naruto's former team. Overall, the Uchiha is not as bad as I thought he would be. He's hardly spoken at all, so I can't tell if he is as arrogant as I imagined. Naruto's death must have affected him more than he's letting on. Sasuke had been brooding the entire time, even more so for him. Sakura was trying her best to cheer him up, with no success. The girl is what I expected her to be. She is pretty shallow, and not concerned with her training at all. If she was able to become a ninja, the Leaf Village must have very low standards. Haku obviously did not like Sakura at all. Hitaki is aloof to the point of annoyance. From what I could tell, his students disapprove of his tardiness, choices of literature, and how he always wears a mask. If Haku had seen Kakashi without his mask, he might understand his need for it. He didn't even take it off while eating. No one even noticed him clear his plate. At least Master Zabuza takes off his wraps while eating. I've seen his handsome face. I bet the Leaf Ninja can't say the same thing about Hitaki. Had Naruto remained in the Leaf Village, a father and daughter duo at a ramen stand would be able to do so. That brings me to the big problem. As much as I dislike them for their past treatment of Naruto, should he rejoin them, they might improve and treat him better. Still, that would not change the opinions of the rest of the village. Nothing short of saving the village from destruction would instantly change the Leaf Village's opinion of Naruto overnight. There is no guarantee that if he does return to them, that they will change for the better and remain so. However, if Naruto does join us, we would definitely give him the companionship and training he needs. Between Zabuza's tutelage and his and Kimimura's friendship, Haku was sure that Naruto would do well as part of their team. Not only that, but we haven't done anything to hurt him in the past. Aside from almost killing him, that is. Naruto is the kind of guy who would forgive someone for that anyway. I've decided now. I will do whatever it takes to convince Naruto that his place is with us now. His dark past in the Leaf Village is over now. His bright future with us, and someday the Mist Village, will begin soon. Having made up his mind concerning whether to keep Naruto or let him go, Haku happily smiled for the first time since leaving Tazuna's home. Looking forward, he saw Zabuza, in disguise, approaching them from a distance. The former swordsman was now dressed in merchant's wear. That is to say, baggy, dark-colored clothes with many pockets and a large coat. He did not wear his face wraps, but had a straw hat covering his hair and downcast over his face, keeping anyone from looking into his eyes. The Leaf Genin soon noticed Zabuza, as he was not trying to conceal his presence. It would be suspicious for a merchant to hide from trained ninja, even inexperienced ninja. "Oh, hello Uncle Sano." Haku called out to Zabuza, using his alias. "Hello Chisato," Zabuza replied. "Who are your friends?" Sasuke and Sakura stood beside Haku now, trying, and failing, to get a good look at Zabuza. They are the Leaf Ninja who are guarding Mr. Tazuna as he finishes construction of the bridge. They escorted me back in case of any danger, Haku answered. Zabuza nodded in reply before responding. "Alright then, thanks for watching my niece. Come along now Chisato." Haku walked forward, then bowed slightly to Sasuke and Sakura. "Thank you for accompanying me back. I'll be fine now with my uncle to take me the rest of the way." Sasuke grunted back. Sakura let out a mild sigh at Sasuke's lack of speech, then addressed Haku. "You're welcome Chisato. It was nice meeting you, goodbye." Sasuke then turned away, and quickly set a fast pace back to Tazuna's residence. Sakura followed as best as she could. "Farewell," Haku called out to them. "And good riddance," he muttered under his breath. With the Leaf Ninja gone, Zabuza and Haku left for their hideout in silence. Haku would inform Zabuza of what he learned once they were back. Back in the safety of their base, Haku and Zabuza began to discuss the new knowledge they had of their patient. "So, what else did you learn tonight?" Zabuza asked Haku. Haku sighed, which Zabuza correctly assumed meant that what Haku learned was not pleasant. "Simply put, from my observations of Naruto's former team, and the details of his past they revealed to me, I can honestly say that I hate them." Zabuza was quite taken aback by that. From the ill-concealed look of disgust and dislike on Haku's face, which did not look good on him, he was telling the truth. "I've only ever seen Haku that angry when someone threatened me. To think, he already considers Naruto to be as important to him as I am." Zabuza cleared his throat, getting Haku's attention. "What exactly drew you to that conclusion?" Haku switched himself into rant mode. First, his former sensei is aloof, apathetic toward teaching, and openly perverted. If it wasn't for the danger level of this mission, I doubt he would have shown them the chakra exercise they performed for quite some time. Zabuza agreed with that. "I concur. I was not impressed by Hitaki's performance, or the skill level of his students. They should have been more experienced. Then again, I do have higher standards for those under my command." Having heard Zabuza's opinion of his reasons for disliking Kakashi, continued his rant. "Not only that, but I can't stand his teammates. The girl is utterly shallow. She's only concerned with her looks, and is obsessed with the Uchiha." Haku looked like he going to pull his long, silky hair out. He began pacing around the room to calm down. Didn't Naruto have a crush on that girl? Zabuza thought to himself. Could Haku merely be indignant on behalf of Naruto for the girl's treatment of him? If so, Haku's become quite empathic with him. While Haku was a kind and gentle soul, who would never hurt anyone unless he had no choice, the boy now looked like he was planning on assassinating most of the Leaf Village. Not that he would ever do such a thing. Zabuza on the other hand. What about the Uchiha? How bad is he? The swordsman in question, well, questioned Haku. He's one of the worst people I have ever met. Sure, he lost almost his entire family, but at least he had one. Now, instead of being thankful he's alive, he's trying to kill himself by seeking out strong opponents to test himself against. Haku was now yelling in anger. I've never seen him act like this before. Naruto was such a happy, energetic kid, but it seems like his life was very rough. Could Haku have developed a bond with Naruto so strong in such a short time that he's expressing all the anger Naruto has suppressed? Zabuza was no psychologist, but his assumption seemed accurate. Meanwhile, Haku was continuing his outbursts. Not only that, but he has just about every girl in the village throwing themselves at him, and he brushes them off like they're nothing to him. People try to be nice to him, and want to be his friend, but he just acts like a smug bastard the whole time. Zabuza decided he heard enough, and knew he had to step in. Haku, Zabuza said while grabbing onto the boy's shoulders and holding him in place. Calm down, this isn't like you. Haku breathed deeply for a few seconds, then began breaking down. Throwing his arms around Zabuza, he began to cry. Oh, I'm sorry, Haku said through choked sobs, I don't know what came over me. Zabuza continued to hold Haku until he calmed down, glad no one was around to see them. It would hurt his image. After some time, Haku had relaxed. The boy took a seat while Zabuza leaned against a wall, opting to put some distance between himself and Haku after his uncharacteristic comforting of his apprentice. Soon, Haku spoke up. What happened to me? Haku asked Zabuza. As near as I can tell, you've developed some kind of empathic bond with Naruto. You feel what he does. That outburst just now must have been caused by the pent-up rage in Naruto. Your sudden mood swing from anger to sadness could be attributed to it as well. Haku accepted Zabuza's explanation. So, what I felt was Naruto's own anger towards his sensei for not instructing him, the girl he liked for spurning his affections, and the Uchiha for rejecting his friendship. Haku asked, and partially stated, to Zabuza. Zabuza nodded back. Also, when I started crying, I remembered how the bridge builder's grandson told me that Naruto didn't cry, no matter how rough his life had been. I must have been expressing the sadness he kept to himself as well. Haku explained further. Yes, that sounds right. For now, it might be best if you let me keep an eye on Naruto. Don't interact with the Leaf Ninja either. This will just be until we've figured out what caused this. Zabuza instructed. Haku was disappointed he would have to avoid Naruto from now on. I won't be able to help him recover, not that there is much that can be done now. I suppose it's for the best. What should I do until then? Haku asked his master. Zabuza put his hand to his chin in a thinking pose. After a few moments, he gave Haku his new orders. We still need the supplies we commandeered from Gato sorted. It would be best to wait until Naruto wakes up so he can help us with his shadow clones. Otherwise it will take us quite some time to do so. Zabuza and Haku not only pilfered Gato's coffers for all his funds, but drove away his workers and stole all the goods his ships were carrying. However, he might awaken faster if we had better medical supplies. Try to find something that might wake him up. You can wait until morning to start though. You'll need all the energy you can get. Haku accepted his new mission and the order to rest. I feel too emotionally drained anyway. Tomorrow I'll start looking through the shipyards and try to find all the medical aid I can. What about the people of Wave? Should we share anything with them? Haku asked Zabuza. That might be a good idea. We're already on their bad side for trying to kill Tazuna, but killing Gato may have got them over that. Still, if we offered them some of the medicine and money we liberated from Gato, that would go a long way towards making them an ally in the future. Haku's mood perked up now. Helping people always did that for him. Still, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We can either keep most of it to ourselves and give up what we don't need, or we can work with the people of Wave, and hopefully count on them for help with the Mist's rebellion. Zabuza explained to Haku. The two pondered their situation for a moment. Zabuza considered the political benefits of an alliance with Wave Country. If we help with Wave's restoration, it'll help my reputation. Not only that, it'll be a good way to work on how I'm going to help restore the Hidden Mist Village and Water Country. Once the rebellion is over, and both countries are stable, we'd be able to forge a trading alliance that would be very profitable for both nations. Haku was thinking along different lines. The people here have been suffering for so long. If we can help them, we should do so. Zabuza looked down at his first apprentice, and could tell what he was thinking by the look in his eyes. Alright, we'll wait until the Leaf Ninja have left, then contact Tazuna about making some deals. The long-term benefits are definitely worth it. Until then, keep searching for medical supplies. Keep what you think will help Naruto, and anything ninja-related, if there is anything like that. Give the rest to the villagers. Haku was glad they would be helping the people of Wave Country, they needed it. I have one question though. Why would we wait until the Leaf Ninja leave to contact Tazuna? Wouldn't he be more comfortable, thus more willing to negotiate with us, having them around? Haku asked Zabuza. Could you stand to be in the same room as them? Zabuza asked back in reply. No, was Haku's simple response. While having dinner with Tazuna's family and Team 7, Haku learned that Sasuke was Rookie of the Year. That meant that Sasuke, who Haku beat with ease, could be the best to expect from the Leaf Village. If their team was any indication of the Hidden Leaf Village's standards, I'd rather have nothing to do with them at all. That statement was made by Haku, but the sentiment was shared by Zabuza, for the most part. I agree with you on that. Don't forget though, Naruto's situation most likely makes him the exception, not the norm. Had he not been the host of the nine-tailed fox demon, he might have been treated like a normal person. Who knows what his life would have been like? There was no point in wondering, what if? Zabuza and Haku had both learned that the hard way. After an uncomfortable silence, Zabuza spoke up. Alright, it's late now, and we have a lot to do tomorrow. Get some rest. I'll keep watch over Naruto. I'll let you know if there's any changes in his condition. Zabuza then returned to the infirmary to check on Naruto. Haku, emotionally drained, retired to his quarters for the night. Before going to sleep, he swore he would do whatever it takes to help Naruto recuperate, and give him a better future. It was 6 days since Haku, using the alias Chisato, had dinner with Tazuna's family and the remnants of Team 7. There he learned more of Naruto's past, and what his former teammates were like. Nothing he discovered pleased him. In the short time Haku had spent with Naruto, he had grown quite sympathetic towards him. When he found out how his so-called teammates treated him, Haku expressed more rage in a short moment than he had in his entire life. Zabuza was able to calm him down, only for Haku to break down emotionally and convey more sadness than he ever felt in his own hard life. Never before had Haku cried as much as he did then. It was theorized by Zabuza that Haku developed an empathic bond with Naruto, most likely based on their similar pasts. Zabuza advised Haku to avoid the Leaf Ninja, as they were a source of Naruto's problems, and Naruto himself. To that end, Haku was ordered to investigate Gato's shipyards to procure any medical equipment to aid in Naruto's recovery. Any extra medical supplies were to be anonymously distributed to the people of Wave Country. Haku, loyal to a fault, followed his orders without question. Exhaustively searching Gato's former empire, he procured anything and everything that might help Naruto awaken. The poor boy burned himself out in his search. After a couple days, Zabuza took notice of this, and had Haku return to Naruto's side. His apprentice seemed more at peace watching Naruto, and did not have any more emotional episodes. Otherwise, Naruto showed no signs of improvement. While his life signs were stable, he continued to thrash about in his unconscious state. It was unclear whether this was a sign of improvement or not. Zabuza surmised his nightmares were getting worse, and had Haku maintain a constant vigil over him. Strangely enough, Naruto became calm in his presence. Whatever Haku was doing to help Naruto, it was working. Although he would admit it to Zabuza, Haku was always talking to Naruto, in the hopes his voice would be heard. It seemed to work, as Naruto remained still around him. Haku would speak to Naruto of his past. He went into detail of his life before meeting Zabuza and his travels with his new master and Kimimaro. When the story caught up to the present day, Haku began speculating what their future would be like, and that he hoped Naruto would be a part of it. At the moment, Haku was dressed in his pink kimono. He hoped Naruto would recognize him in it. Still feeling guilty for almost killing Naruto, Haku wanted to keep his mind at peace. Hopefully, when Naruto would first see him upon awakening, he would think of the day they met in the woods, and not the day he almost died. Looking down at Naruto, Haku hoped that he was okay. Naruto's temperature was still running a bit high, so Haku had been using his bloodline to regulate Naruto's temperature. Keeping a bucket of water nearby, Haku used his ability to control it to cool it down, and let it flow over Naruto, who still only had a towel preserving his modesty. Maintaining a steady temperature for Naruto with the water was a unique challenge for Haku, as he had to split his focus over controlling the liquid, while holding a one-sided conversation with Naruto. In a short amount of time, he was able to do both with ease, controlling the water almost subconsciously. Haku made a note of it, since it may have use as a control exercise. Now that he was able to focus his attention entirely on speaking to Naruto, Haku began to converse with him again. I hope you wake up soon. I know I've said it countless times, but I want you to so badly. Haku was not crying, but anyone who could hear him knew it was only his emotional control he learned as a ninja keeping him from doing so. I'm so sorry. If it wasn't for me this wouldn't have happened to you. If you wake up I promise I'll do anything to make up for it. So please, wake up. Haku's control was slipping. Not over the water technique, which he excelled at, but he was beginning to lose control of the tears he was holding back. I've only known you a short time, but I know if we had met under different circumstances, we could have been close. Whether it would be as friends or brothers, I know we would have been happy and our lives would have been better. Right now, Haku was sure he was beginning to love Naruto as a brother, and nothing more. I told you that I knew one day you would become strong. Well, I saw your strength the day we fought on the bridge. You are strong, you proved that when you sacrificed yourself to save your teammate. I know you're strong enough to overcome whatever demons are plaguing you, so please, wake up. That was the moment when Haku finally lost his control, and began to weep for Naruto. The tears which were being held back began pouring out like a flood. Haku's eyes began reddening, so he closed them. Had he kept them open, he would have noticed Naruto's were starting to do just that. Darkness, that's all that surrounded him. As soon as Naruto managed to suppress the nine-tailed fox demon's malicious chakra, that was the first thing he experienced. Soon, the tortuous nightmares began. It started with a vision of an 8-year-old Naruto asking out an 8-year-old Sakura on a date. Every vision ended the same way. The young Naruto would be violently rejected every time. The present-day Naruto was forced to watch this happen from an outsider's perspective, unable to do anything to change the outcome. He was forced to watch as the girl he pined for endlessly break his heart countless times. At first it was just the three of them. The younger Naruto and Sakura, with the elder Naruto watching them. As time went by, more people starting to witness each rejection. They would be random civilians from the Hidden Leaf Village, Naruto's classmates from the academy, and even his instructors. Nothing hurt him more than seeing Sakura reject him, and Iruka laugh in his face over it. Soon even Teuchi, Ayame, and the third Hokage were with Iruka, having a good laugh at Naruto's expense. The people Naruto considered to be the most precious to him were now using his suffering to make themselves feel better. Unexpectedly, Naruto was shown a vision of himself as an adult. He would try to ask a girl on a date, only for her to laugh in his face and walk away. Naruto wondered why he was not trying to ask out Sakura, but soon received an answer. He saw her with Sasuke and many children with pink and black hair. The sight of them together crushed his heart. When the visions of Sakura's constant rejections grew old, they switched to a vision of a young Sasuke and Naruto. The younger Naruto would try to earn young Sasuke's friendship, only to be brushed aside every time. Soon young Naruto challenged young Sasuke to a fight, in order to get the boy to acknowledge his skills. It was a disaster. Young Sasuke would beat young Naruto every time. Each fight ended in an increasingly painful and humiliating loss that made Kakashi's 1,000 years of death seem pleasant. As before, the number of witnesses grew with each vision. Naruto watched himself be brutally beaten while his so-called friends sat back and enjoyed the show. No one ever helped him, even as he was almost on death's door. Just like the visions of Naruto being rejected by Sakura ended with a look into his future, so did the vision of Sasuke's constant rejections of his friendship and beatings at his hand. Naruto saw his adult self, all alone. He was in a wheelchair in a private care facility. The constant harm from his fights with Sasuke took a toll on his body and left him paralyzed. Having never tried to make any other friends, Naruto never received a visitor. Eventually, those visions ended as well, but more took their place. An orange-clad boy would play pranks for attention on the populace. Naruto could not face his younger self in those visions without his eyes filled with pain, almost as if his choice of attire was a literal eyesore. Naruto had not pulled a prank since becoming a genin, but it did not matter. He was bombarded by visions of an older Naruto, who no one took seriously or respected. All anyone saw in him was the young prankster who was a constant annoyance in their lives. The current vision was of Naruto's academy years. Naruto witnessed his younger self reading a history book, only to throw it away in disinterest. While his classmates studied, the young Naruto spent his time planning his next prank. The next day there was a history test. Those who passed were taken outside and shown how to perform the clone technique with in-depth detail. Those who failed remained behind, cleaning the classroom. The young Naruto was the only one who failed. While his classmates were learning a valuable skill, Naruto was left behind, all alone. The vision changed to one of an adult Naruto. Having failed as a ninja due to his poor skills, he was forced to work as a laborer. Due to his failings in the civilian schools, not to mention the time he lost in the ninja academy and his brief career as one, he was far behind and could not catch up. The adult Naruto bounced from one job to the next, unable to focus on a given task for long. His chakra was sealed, so he could not use his shadow clones to accelerate his tasks, not that anyone trusted him with anything important. Naruto was nearing the end of his rope. The visions he was forced to watch were breaking down his will to live. Soon, he might give in to his despair and take any offer to end his suffering, even if it came from the nine-tailed fox demon itself. As if the fox knew that, Naruto was shown one last vision. It was a combination of the previous ones. It showed Sasuke becoming Hokage, and as if adding salt to the wound, he married Sakura. Naruto himself was a poor, uneducated orphan who no one liked, was alone and eventually spent his remaining years in a hospital bed, too weak to even move. Seeing Sasuke steal both of his dreams while he was left with nothing was too much for Naruto, who wished that someone would do something, anything to end his torture. As if reading his thoughts, the fox demon, who had been using his limited influence on Naruto's mind to drive him to the edge of despair, began to draw him back into the labyrinth that was his mindscape. Once there, the fox would encourage Naruto to remove the seal and free him from his suffering. It would take a miracle to save him now, and by such chance one happened. While a demon plotted against Naruto, it could be said an angel, with long red hair and violet eyes, was watching out for him. Just when the fox demon was about to move against Naruto, its power was pushed back by an unknown force. The nightmare-like visions reset, but this time they were different. For a moment, before Naruto was forced to watch the visions again, he thought he heard a voice. "I'm sorry, I wish I could have been there for you. We could have been so close. I'll do anything for you, so please, wake up." Then it was gone. Naruto thought it sounded familiar. He did not have time to remember it, as the visions started again. Just like before, they started with his younger self being rejected by a young Sakura. There was something different this time though. Someone else was here. After Sakura told him she would never go out with him, a young person, who looked like a girl and Naruto thought was prettier than Sakura, came by and comforted him. The mysterious girl, who had long, black hair, brown eyes and pale skin, offered Naruto some advice. Soon the young Naruto tried asking out the young Sakura again, this time with a different approach. Sakura refused him again, and the strange girl offered her support once more. She showed him what he did wrong, and helped him plan a different tactic. Unlike before, there was no one else who watched Naruto humiliate himself over and over. Each time Naruto would try something different to get Sakura to go out with him, and each time when she said no the other girl would offer her sympathy and help him try again. There was another change. With each new approach, it was clear it was getting harder and harder for the young Sakura to reject the young Naruto. It seemed like whatever he was doing, it was now working. Soon the vision changed to that of a teenage Naruto, who was asking out a teenage Sakura. Only this time, she accepted the offer for a date. Naruto was shown a montage of scenes, with the future Naruto and Sakura's relationship developing from just dating, to getting engaged, then married, and having a family. Naruto was sure it was because of the presence of the dark-haired girl that his life changed. He wondered what else would be different because of her. Naruto watched his younger self challenge a younger Sasuke to a fight, only to lose. This time, the girl was there to heal him afterwards. She would then help with his training, making him stronger. The young Naruto continued to challenge young Sasuke, but would do a little better each time, no doubt thanks to the girl's help. Eventually, the other Naruto defeated the other Sasuke, who finally acknowledged him as a worthy rival and friend. Naruto was getting better by the minute. If only this girl was with him in his youth, his life could have been so much better. He was sure she was familiar as well. Knowing the next vision would be of his days as a prankster, Naruto wondered how the girl's inclusion in his life would change that. The vision he was treated to was a simple one. With the girl giving him the attention he craved, the young Naruto had no need to seek it out. Instead of wearing bright orange and playing pranks, he wore modest colors and spent his time training diligently. Eventually, he became a respected member of society, who everyone was sure would make an excellent Hokage someday, which he did. Naruto was in high spirits now. He wondered who this girl could be, and how, with her help, he might have been able to obtain all that he ever wanted. Seeing the last vision, Naruto knew things would be fine. He saw his younger self struggling to understand the concepts in his textbooks. This time, the girl was there to help him learn them. Although he was never the bookworm type, he did well enough with her help to gain a basic amount of knowledge. She helped him learn how to perform the clone technique, and his younger self graduated from the Ninja Academy at the age of 10, gaining a head start on his career. Seeing how much better his life would have been with that girl as a part of it, Naruto wished he knew who she was. The girl was strangely familiar to him, and Naruto was sure he had met her before. Concentrating, Naruto focused on her image and tried to determine her identity. The world around him seemed to blur, and soon took the form of a forest. Naruto recognized it as the outskirts near Tazuna's home where he practiced his tree climbing. Looking around, he saw himself asleep on the ground. It was then he realized he was watching a memory of his. Glancing about, Naruto noticed the girl from the visions approaching. Naruto watched her sit next to his sleeping double, and place her hand around his neck, almost as if she was going to strangle him. Instead, she settled for waking him up. Naruto watched the memory play out, and had a good laugh at his own expense when the girl revealed she was really a boy. It was then Naruto realized he never found out the beautiful boy's name. Just when he thought it was all over though, the scene changed again. This time, it was of him and Sasuke trapped in Haku's ice mirrors. He heard Haku's voice calling out taught them. I see, you two share the legacy of a bloodline. Naruto started feeling uncomfortable. This was moments before Haku nearly killed him. Something was amiss though. Feeling as if he was missing something, Naruto focused on figuring it out. Then, just as suddenly as when the scene changed from the woods to the bridge, it changed back. Do you have anyone special in your life? The scene changed back once more. I can't let this fight go on. My own art forces me to expend a great deal of chakra, so there is a limit to how long I can go on using it. Yet another change. When people are protecting something truly precious to them, they truly can become as strong as they need to be. Change again. I'm certain the longer our duel drags on, the greater your ability to perceive my movements will become. Especially since to a certain extent, you can already see me now. Change. You will get stronger. I know we'll meet again. So, you should know, I'm a boy. Change for the last time. Time to bring this to an end. The vision stopped there. Naruto was now in tears. He understood perfectly what he was seeing. The voice of the attractive boy was the same as Haku's. He was the boy he met in the woods that day, collecting herbs to help Zabuza recover, herbs Naruto helped him collect. Naruto did not know what to feel. While Haku taught him an important lesson, he also nearly killed him. Unsure of what to do, he wished someone would give him an answer. I hope you wake up soon. I know I've said it countless times, but I want you to so badly. Naruto looked around in surprise. He heard the voice again, which he now knew belonged to Haku. I'm so sorry. If it wasn't for me this wouldn't have happened to you. If you wake up I promise I'll do anything to make up for it. So please, wake up. He heard Haku's apology, and his offer for amends. Naruto, never being one to hold a grudge, felt like he could accept it. I've only known you a short time, but I know if we had met under different circumstances, we could have been close. Whether it would be as friends or brothers, I know we would have been happy and our lives would have been better. Naruto knew from his visions that if he and Haku had been friends, his life would have been much better because of it, and was sure he could have made Haku's better as well. I told you that I knew one day you would become strong. Well, I saw your strength the day we fought on the bridge. You are strong, you proved that when you sacrificed yourself to save your teammate. I know you're strong enough to overcome whatever demons are plaguing you, so please, wake up. Thinking back to his memory of the events on the bridge, Naruto agreed. Rather than run away to save his own life, he threw himself into the line of fire to save his teammate. That took courage and a lot of strength to do so. Understanding dawned on Naruto. The nightmares were caused by the fox demon in another attempt to get him to remove the seal. Haku was right though, he was strong enough to beat his inner demon, but it because he had Haku's help. Wanting to thank Haku for helping him regain his will to live, Naruto did what Haku asked of him, and woke up. The first thing Naruto felt when he awoke was dampness. His naked body seemed to be covered in a thin layer of water, which felt cool. Opening his eyes, the first thing he saw was Haku, wearing the same pink kimono he had on when they first met. Seeing that Haku was crying for him, Naruto reached up with his hand and brushed some of the tears away. Haku, Naruto said faintly, gaining his attention, I forgive you. Haku finally broke control of his water technique, as he was too busy hugging Naruto, who hugged him back with what little strength he had, to maintain it. As Haku kept vigil over Naruto, Zabuza had taken over searching their new properties, while giving away anything they did not need to the villagers of Wave Country. Medical supplies and anything not of use to him were dropped off anonymously throughout the village. Some were suspicious of the medical supplies being dispersed around the village. Tazuna brought up the point to Kakashi, who brushed it off as Zabuza playing benefactor. In his words, in a shinobi culture, today's enemy could be tomorrow's ally. Kakashi believed it was not entirely out of the goodness in his heart, but out of an ulterior motive. With Gato dead, Zabuza no longer had any quarrel with Tazuna. Kakashi suspected he might be extending an olive branch in the hopes of acquiring Wave's support for the Mist Rebellion. Wave Country could provide a staging ground for the rebellion. Forces may gather here from around the elemental nations in preparation for a death blow against the oppressive Mist regime. Tazuna was very uncomfortable with that idea. The thought of a large number of ninja gathering in Wave put him on edge. He was afraid they may draw unwanted attention. There was another potential reason why Zabuza would be interested in Wave. Once the bridge is complete, and with Gato's company in ruins, Wave Country would become a shipping hub in the elemental nations. Whoever manages to make a trade agreement with Wave would profit from it greatly. For now though, Tazuna was at ease. Gato was dead, his bridge was nearly complete, his grandson was doing better than he had been in years, and the quality of life in Wave was slowly improving. If Zabuza's intentions were to help now, Tazuna might just hear him out. As long as nothing he wanted put Wave Country or its people into danger, while benefiting them, he could end up being a welcome ally. As it turns out, Zabuza was in fact seeking a sort of alliance from Wave Country. The acts of goodwill following the events of the battle on the bridge were a peace offering. The bridge itself was now complete, its construction having been completed the day before. The Leaf Ninja had set out to return to their village as their mission was complete as well. Zabuza waited until they were gone before contacting Tazuna. He was the closest entity to a leader the people of Wave Country had. That, and Zabuza felt he could not stay in the presence of the Leaf Ninja without wanting to eviscerate them for their treatment of Naruto. They were to meet at a location of Tazuna's choosing, to make him feel more at ease. Tazuna chose the end of the bridge that was connected to Fire Country. That way, he could observe the final touches being applied, the sign declaring the name of the bridge to the world, and a memorial plaque for Naruto. Zabuza waited until Tazuna arrived to appear. Had he made it there first, Tazuna might have been suspicious of a possible trap. He had no reason to worry though. Zabuza had no intention of causing Tazuna any harm, just the opposite in fact. The only trap he had was Haku, and Naruto was the only one in danger of springing it. While Tazuna supervised his workers, Zabuza made his way along the bridge to meet them. He did not have the decapitating carving knife with him, as he felt Tazuna would be more at ease if he was unarmed. Of course, Zabuza could kill Tazuna in a myriad of ways without it, but hopefully the gesture will be appreciated. As Zabuza made his way across the bridge, he noticed the workers giving him a wide berth, clearly not too comfortable around him. It was understandable, given that he attacked them just over a week ago. Soon he made it to the end, where Tazuna was waiting for him. Zabuza was doing nothing to hide his presence, so the bridge builder had been building up his nerve. There was a tense moment between the two. Only 8 days ago Zabuza was trying to kill Tazuna, only to be betrayed by Gato. In an instant, Zabuza had gone from villain to hero, killing Gato and ending his cruel stranglehold over Wave Country. Now, in the days since then, Gato's company was in ruins. His assets were cleaned out, and without funds to run the company or pay his workers, they had abandoned him. Some had fought back against Zabuza when he claimed his compensation from Gato, only to meet a grisly demise. The various deeds that Gato held for properties across the elemental nation were now in Zabuza's hands. Effectively, Zabuza had taken Gato's place as tyrant of the seas. Luckily for those who lived here, Zabuza was not interested in the position, having set his sights on a higher goal. Instead, where Gato hoarded his wealth and goods, Zabuza had been sharing the wealth, or at least some of it. For that reason only Tazuna agreed to their meeting. The supplies being left around the village had been a great help to the impoverished people of Wave Country. In a week Zabuza had done more for them than Gato ever did. Besides, if Zabuza still wanted to kill Tazuna, the old bridge builder was sure he would already be dead. It was quiet for a bit. Tazuna was the first to break the silence. Clearing his throat, he addressed Zabuza. "Alright, let's get this over with. I'm still not over the whole, 'you were hired to kill me' thing, but according to Kakashi, it was just a job, and with Gato dead I'm not in danger anymore. So what gives with the charity? You want something from us?" Zabuza nodded in reply. "Yes, but first, tell me, have you come up with a name for the bridge?" Zabuza asked Tazuna. The bridge builder was caught off guard by Zabuza's query. "I thought everyone had heard what its new name was. I guess Zabuza's been holed up in the woods or in Gato's ships and hasn't heard yet." Zabuza had indeed heard of the name chosen for the bridge, and intended on using it to his advantage. "I decided to name it, the Great Naruto Bridge, in honor of the boy your apprentice killed." Tazuna snarled out. Although he was playing nice now because Zabuza seemed to be willing to help, Tazuna was still upset by Naruto's death. "I figured that would be a sore spot. I had to play this carefully." Zabuza thought. "A fine name it is. He died an honorable death. Thought had he been a mist ninja instead of a leaf ninja he would have been strong enough to live." Tazuna seemed to take offense to that. "What's that supposed to mean?" He called out to Zabuza. "Are you calling him weak?" "Nothing of the sort. He gave his life to save his comrade. Like I said, it was an honorable death. However, had he been trained properly and given the support he needed, I'm sure he could have killed me and my apprentice with ease." Zabuza had been acting nonchalant at first, but with his final statement he stared Tazuna right in the eyes. The bridge builder gulped at the look he was given, and could tell Zabuza meant what he said. "What do you mean, he could have killed the both of you? I'm not sure we're talking about the same kid here." For a moment, a gleam of amusement appeared in Zabuza's eyes. "I'm getting through to him. He's taken the bait, so now I just have to reel him in. You probably did not notice it since you are not a shinobi, but that boy had incredible potential, which had been going to waste." Tazuna seemed curious now. Zabuza had not explained why he believed Naruto had so much potential, and he wanted to know how. Wasted potential, what does that mean? Zabuza remained calm. Thinking of how much better Naruto should have been infuriated him, but it would be bad if he lost his temper in front of Tazuna. "Things are different now. I will be sure to give Naruto the training he needs, and have him fight for me from now on." Zabuza did not do everything out of the goodness of his heart, after all. "Remember when I first engaged Team 7 in combat? I had Kakashi imprisoned and my water clone was toying with his students? What did Naruto do in that situation?" Tazuna thought about it for a moment. That was not something he really wanted to remember. "Let's see, Naruto tried attacking the water clone, was it? Yeah, he got beaten bad, and lost his headband, but he got it back. Then he said he had a plan. I recall him sending his own clones out, but they weren't made of water." Tazuna was getting close now. They were all beaten pretty easily. Naruto then tossed a weapon to Sasuke, who threw it at Zabuza, who caught it. Then another one appeared, apparently hidden in the first shadow. That was the Shadow Shuriken technique, not to be confused with the Shuriken Shadow Clone technique, as it often was. Zabuza dodged that one, but it was really Naruto in some sort of disguise. I've never heard of a disguise like that though. Must be a ninja trick. He then threw a knife at Zabuza, who was forced to dodge it, releasing Kakashi. Said ninja trick was the elephant in the room, and any more of it is better left unsaid, lest a can of worms be opened. From what I recall, Tazuna said, Naruto tricked you into freeing Kakashi. Not bad for a kid, but I don't think outsmarting you once is enough to make you think he could have killed you. So what am I, a civilian who knows nothing of shinobi ways, missing out on? Zabuza was silently impressed that Tazuna caught on so quickly. Alright, I'll tell you. Do you know what ninja technique Naruto used to create his clones? Zabuza asked Tazuna. Tazuna thought about it for a moment, answered. I think he shouted, Shadow Clone Technique? Yeah, that was it. Indeed, Zabuza replied, that was the Shadow Clone Technique. It is a B-ranked forbidden technique. Tazuna's eyes widened in surprise at the classification of the technique. Most likely from the forbidden part, as he would not understand the meaning of the rank. I see you understand, and I'm guessing it was the forbidden part that caught your attention. You see, unlike water clones which use water, something that is easily available, the shadow clone technique uses, and creates solid clones of pure chakra, the life force of a shinobi. Zabuza knew Tazuna did not understand, but continued anyway. The more chakra a ninja has, the more ninja techniques they can use. From what I can tell, Naruto has quite a lot of chakra. Much more than me in fact. He was able to make dozens of shadow clones, repeatedly I might add. I can only make a few, and just once. Tazuna would not realize it, but there should have been no way Zabuza would know the shadow clone technique. The only way would be if he had learned it from Naruto, which, in a way, he did. Using the Sharingan isn't the only way to copy a technique. I saw the hand seal Naruto used, and so did Haku. Knowing what the technique does, it was easy enough figuring out how it works so I could use it myself. Zabuza had been practicing the technique in his spare time. With Haku's help, he determined the proper hand seal it required. After several tries and tiring himself out greatly, he successfully performed it. Unlike Naruto, Zabuza noticed the memory transfer property right away. He was already putting it to use. 2 clones would investigate the shipyard, 2 more would develop their water manipulation, and Zabuza himself would concentrate on his physical training. I can't make too many shadow clones right now, so the technique is useless for me in combat. It is a good training tool though. I'll be able to accelerate my development greatly with it. Thinking of how much better he would become knowing one of the Hidden Leaf Village's forbidden techniques pleased Zabuza to no end. It's obvious why the shadow clone technique was considered forbidden. If not for the chakra cost, the memory transfer would allow any chakra powerhouse to become very powerful in a short time. That brought him back to the topic at hand, Naruto's wasted potential. Did you know that when a shadow clone is dispelled, its memories are transferred back to their creator? I could have a clone working on a chakra control exercise, like tree climbing. Tazuna, who knew Naruto and Sasuke spent a lot of time doing that exercise, paid close attention to Zabuza's words. When the shadow clone is dispelled, I get the benefits of the training while I was doing something else. I could be working out, reading a book, guarding a client or helping build a bridge, anything like that. Tazuna now had some ill-concealed anger in his eyes. Taking a deep breath, he then spoke up. So, Tazuna said to Zabuza, before we continue, how do I know the technique works like you said? I could create a clone, then you can tell it something, and it will then dispel itself. I'll learn what you told it, and tell it back to you. Okay, do it then, but I don't know how good your hearing is, and I don't feel like doing much walking. Tazuna then called out to a nearby worker. Hey, you, get over here. An anonymous worker ran up to them as Zabuza formed a shadow clone. Go with this guy here to the other end of the bridge and say something to him, then when he disappears come back here. The worker was clearly intimidated by Zabuza, but went along with Tazuna's instructions. After some time, Zabuza grunted. They're done. Your employee should be back soon. As Zabuza said, Tazuna's employee came back after a few minutes. Tazuna then awaited proof of the technique's success. He thanked me for taking care of Gato and passing out some medicine. His daughter had a cold and she's doing better now, Zabuza said. Although he gave no indication to his own emotions, Zabuza was glad he was of help. Hopefully what we've done here will be a good indication of how things will go for the Hidden Mist Village and Water Country. Tazuna looked at his employee, who confirmed what Zabuza said was true. Tazuna looked back to Zabuza and spoke to him again. Alright, I believe you. From what I understand, Naruto could have used that technique of his to complete that training exercise faster. Either he could have used a clone to do it, or several at once, right? Zabuza nodded in response. Yes, considering the number he can make, he could have done it 10, 20, or even 30 times faster. Zabuza explained further. Not only that, Tazuna spoke again, he could have left a few of them behind to work on that exercise, while guarding me as I worked on the bridge, or even used some of them to lend a hand? That's right, Zabuza answered. I'm sure given the small number of workers you had, someone, or a lot of someone, even without any skill, would have been a welcome hand. Tazuna was now silently fuming. While I was struggling to complete the bridge with a dwindling staff, a perfectly good source of cheap, disposable labor was wasting his time. Naruto's inexperience would not even be a problem. Once again, the shadow clone technique was the solution to a problem. If what Zabuza says is true, His clones could have just read all the training manuals I had, received some basic instruction, and he would have been set to go. He wouldn't be too good, but better than nothing anyway. Tazuna did some breathing exercises to calm himself down. There's more, Zabuza said. Remember how I said Naruto had more chakra than me? Well, the more you have, the harder it is to control it. Therefore, he should have been receiving advanced training in order to do so for quite some time. Tazuna was able to guess where this was going. So let me guess. That tree climbing exercise Naruto struggled to complete was something he should have already known? That's right, Zabuza answered. Had any of Kakashi's students been mist ninja, they would have known much more advanced chakra control exercises, not just Naruto. Yet it seems Kakashi didn't even bother teaching any of them anything until your life was in danger. Reminding Tazuna that he was originally hired to kill him was a risky move, but hopefully it would be worth it. So, Tazuna said, just what kind of advanced chakra control exercises would they know? Water walking for one, Zabuza replied quickly. Tazuna appeared taken aback by that, but remembered Kakashi and Zabuza doing just that in their fight. Considering the hidden mist village must have a lot of water, I could see being able to walk on it very useful. I'm sure a liquid is harder to walk on than a solid, so it's definitely harder than climbing trees. Tazuna shook his head and spoke to Zabuza again. Okay, I see what you're getting at. Naruto and his teammates should have been a lot stronger. Had they been mist ninjas like you said, they would have been able to kill you and your apprentice with ease, right? That is correct, Zabuza confirmed. So, do you understand why I called for a meeting with you now? Understanding dawned on Tazuna. I knew he wanted an alliance with Wave Country, but it sounds like he's trying to convince me that mist ninjas are stronger than leaf ninjas, or at least have higher standards. Still, I'm not totally convinced. It sounds like you want me to consider sending my business to the Hidden Mist Village and Water Country instead of the Hidden Leaf Village and Fire Country, am I right? Tazuna said. You catch on quick. My purpose here is to come to an agreement the future of Wave Country. I'll continue to use Gato's former resources to aid in your recovery. Once both Wave Country and my homeland are again stable, our nations can work together for our mutual benefit. In other words, Tazuna said, we send all of our requests for help from Ninja to the Hidden Mist Village, and form trading deals with Water Country. Is that right? That's right. So, do we have a deal then? Zabuza asked Tazuna. Not just yet, Tazuna replied. Isn't the Hidden Mist Village in the middle of a civil war? By the sounds of it, it'll be over soon. It will be, Zabuza said. Between the funds I acquired from Gato, as well as the supplies from his shipyard, the rebellion forces now have the resources needed for a final death blow that will end the war once and for all. Rebellion forces? Tazuna seemed to ask with a raised eyebrow. You wouldn't happen to be planning on gathering them here in Wave Country, would you? No, I have no intention of drawing any attention here. Besides, we have other bases in Water Country that would suit our needs better. Zabuza answered. Tazuna was relieved by that. I was worried we'd be overrun by ninja. In that case, since you've already given us plenty of help, and have offered to continue doing so, and because of the prospective benefits of an arrangement, I'll accept your offer. It's a deal. Tazuna then shook hands with Zabuza, sealing the deal. You won't regret this, Zabuza said. I better not, Tazuna replied. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.